Joining us now on our book talk, Sim, great to welcome one of the co-authors. A very interesting book. I think it's going to get a lot of people thinking about what's going on in the world of education and children. It's called The Self-Driven Child, the Science and Sense of Giving Your Kids More Control Over Their Lives. We're joined today by Ned Johnson. He's the founder of Prep Matters. It's one of the leading tutoring and test prep services in Washington, D.C. He joined us by telephone today. Ned, good to talk with you. How are you?
I'm terrific. And you?
I'm doing great. Had a chance to I didn't get a chance to finish it yet, but I look forward to doing that. But reading through the book, and I tell you, I got to agree with you. I've never been a teacher, but I did some substitute teaching a long time ago, and I tell you, it's a whole different world out there in the school system as far as what kids go through.
The world keeps changing, and not always for the better.
Unfortunately, and I guess parents now, you hear these stories of putting pressure on them even at 4 or 5 years old to get into certain kind of nursery schools and kindergarten, which is hard to believe, but that's a fact, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and obviously, parents are doing these things because they love their kids and they want them to be successful. The challenge is that amount of pressure and stress on developing brains is really detrimental. One, to those kids developing resiliency and the ability to bounce back from a challenge, and two, internal motivation. So kids are doing things, pursue goals, things that matter to them, and doing things because they love them, rather than doing it just out of response to people's pressure on them.
Yeah, you mentioned stress, and you talk about it in the book, different types of stress, and there's good stress and there's bad stress, but you hear about these kids now, so many on medications to handle stress. I'm not that far past the age of I grew up in the 70s basically, and I never heard of kids being under stress then, other than maybe you get in trouble for doing something dumb, but that was it. But never medicated. It seems like it's an epidemic almost.
Yeah, the science shows that kids today are 5 to 8 times more likely to develop anxiety and depression than kids were in the past, including some periods of time that were probably a little stressful, like the Depression and the Second World War. So something is really amiss, and we're obviously interested in trying to move the needle back a little bit.
Hey, do we know why all of a sudden the last, say, 10 years, I guess, it's really kind of become more prevalent, but why is that? Is it anything to do with media, or what's the cause?
Well, no one knows for sure, but one way to think about this is that stress that's overwhelming, in many cases, is just the total amount of it. A little bit here, a little bit there. I mean, with adults, we know that stressors are, a new job, a move, a death in the family, divorce. Mm-hmm. And as adults, almost all of us have experienced at least one of these things. But if all 4 happened at once, we are really going to struggle with our day-to-day life. And it's the same thing with kids. Kids can handle stuff, and most kids are doing a great job with all sorts of things. The concern that we have is the total amount that's coming on. If the total amount of stress coming in is greater than the total amount of stress coming out, we're going to have a problem. One of the things that's, of course, implicated is the use of technology, and the kids being sort of wired 24/7, in part right. Because it creates an external locus of control where I not only have to worry about me and what matters, in my life, but what people all over the internet think about my, whatever I posted on a social media, and it's more things that I have to worry about. As well as if we have too much time with technology, and I'm not a Luddite, I love my iPhone like everybody else does, but if I spend too much time on there, it's crowding out things that are really helpful to me in pulling that stress out of legitimate, quality time spent with my family or with my friends. It crowds out sleep. It crowds out exercise. It crowds out really sort of passionate devotion to extracurricular activities or hobbies. So our feeling about this with technology is people really want to practice radical digital downtime, where they take that phone, say, for all of Sunday morning, this is family time. Nobody has a cell phone. There's no cell phone at the kitchen table, and we use technology, but it has its place so that we can have our place without it.
Yeah, you just mentioned there, exercise. When I was in elementary school, most of the day was, planning with your buddies there what you were going to do after school, what game you were going to play. Street hockey, football, baseball. I don't see kids playing after school. You can drive by schoolyards or playgrounds. I don't see kids do that anymore. I guess that's part of the issue, isn't it? They're just not getting out and playing.
It's a big It's a big part of the issue. And every school system, in my view, and I'm a test prep guy, but every school system in the world that's shortening recess or getting rid of physical education to put in more test prep is making a profound mistake. Because exercise, apart from being fun, is remarkably good at developing all these high-level functions that is the work of childhood and adolescence, of developing these really important parts of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that helps them be successful in school, in work, and in life.
And you talk again, kind of the premise of the book is so many parents nowadays, I know it's out of love probably in most cases, but they don't let their kids make decisions. That's really a big problem, and they never learn how to.
It's a huge problem, and again, we understand why parents do this because they're so worried about the outcome. But brains develop in the ways that they're used, right? So if you're going to get good at making decisions, you have to have the opportunity to make decisions at the youngest possible age, and they're not all going to be great decisions, right? I mean, wisdom comes from experience, and experience comes from making some bad decisions. We want to give our kids the message that you have a brain in your head, and you care about your life being successful, and you have the ability to make good decisions. And I know that you're going to make some mistakes, but I have confidence that when you goof something up, that you're going to figure out how to fix it, or what the best decision is, in that situation that you've now created. Because what is life? I mean, how many weeks have you gone without making a mistake, or have I gone? I can't think of a single one.
Yeah, it's okay to make. You don't want to do something obviously, really dumb like run in the middle of traffic or drugs and that kind of thing. But little mistakes are good for you, right? I mean, in a sense.
That's exactly what the science shows. Is this resilience? What we talk about all the time with kids is the opportunity to face a stressor. And often that might be making a mistake or taking on something that's a little bit more than I think that I can handle. But then it's stressful. But then I come back to mom and dad, and it's a safe base. Parents are not anxious, and I recover, and I go, well, that didn't work out so great. But then I go out and take another. So it's like going out, have an adventure, come back, recover. Go out, have an adventure, come back, and recover. If I play helicopter parent and I don't let my kid ever have a challenge, that's a problem. And if I'm like super vigilant and stressed out, then I've made home no longer a safe base.
Do you find, Ned, again, you wrote it along with Dr. William Stixrud, so you really had a lot of science behind this book. Do you find it's optimistic as far as getting this done, or how do you combat all that stuff that you got to deal with media and all that?
I mean, we have a whole bunch of things in the book that basically talk about how parents can engage with their kids, the things that they can do for themselves and for their kids that, one, create internal motivation and create a greater sense of resilience. And so there are, things like exercise, you talked about sleep, limiting use of technology, spending time on pastimes that kids find really, really fun, and as parents, being consultants to support kids and all that stuff, but not being a manager, not acting like it's my responsibility to get my kid to do his homework, because if he doesn't, I really can't make him. I mean, he can just close his darn eyes, and then we're both kind of stuck. And so we want to flip this model where it's really kid-driven and adult-supported, because it's a terrible place for me as a dad and for my kids if they feel like they're just being pushed all the time. It's exhausting for both of us.
Well, it's a great book. It's going to, I'm sure, give a lot of parents, hopefully, some good tips on what they can do. Again, it's called The Self-Driven Child. We've been talking with Ned Johnson, one of the co-authors, along with William Stixrud. And do you have a website, Ned, you can direct people to, get more information?
Thanks so much. The website is theselfdrivenchild.com. So theselfdrivenchild.com.
Great. Ned, pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we can do it again. Good luck with the book.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or DougMilesMedia.com.